Okay, I think we'll get started. We might have a few stragglers come up. So thanks everyone for coming. I appreciate I'm the last session before the party. I anticipate an even smaller audience. Thank you for coming. I mistitled my session, and I'll explain that when we come to the agenda. But a bit about me. I'm a consultant for Trinity Expert Systems. We're based out of London and Coventry. I used to work for Eurodata Systems, who were taken over by Trinity about 18 months ago. And like the builder's house, we still haven't actually amalgamated all of our email systems yet. So I'm still available at eurodatasystems.com. I'm on Twitter, @Kimmerus, and it's a snowboard helmet. People do often ask. It was at the top of the Alps. I also blog regularly on myfatblog.co.uk. There is a story behind that that isn't for here. We'll talk about that at the party. And away from IT, I do wood turning for a hobby. It's a lovely stress release, and it's just completely unrelated to IT.
So you make baseball bats and stuff?
Basically. Talk to me afterwards and I'll show you some pictures. So what we're going to talk about today is basically cross-site collection roll-ups, but basically roll-ups in any form, starting in 2010. So when I said this session was mistitled, it really should have been building it first in 2010, migrating it to 2013, and then building it from scratch again in 2013. But Steve said that title was too long, so hence the migration. We will be talking migration during it. So as I said, we're going to look at it building in 2010. We're going to look at the story migrating from 2010 into 2013, some of the gotchas and perhaps some of the reasons why you might not want to upgrade. And then we're going to look at rebuilding from scratch in 2013. So I'm basing my story today on a real-life build that we did. I can't tell you the company name, so we just have legalcorp.com. So they're a global legal company spread across 3 main regions. So we have the Americas, EMEA, and Asia-Pac. And because of the way the company worked, each region was a specific legal entity. So their requirements for their site collections that were obviously far key. So the global challenges gave us these issues, so using a site collection for each region with just a global site at the top of the navigation. And this obviously gave us some key challenges. Consistent navigation, content type syndication, how do we push these out across all the site collections? The client's preference to avoid custom code where possible. And the roll-up of content across these regions and these site collections. So that's obviously our key one that we're talking about today. So for this particular piece of work I did, the client had a key requirement to produce a news article roll-up on their front page. So it's the pretty typical intranet story. They want to see their top 4, top 5 stories appear on the front page. They had a particular format. Because of the global regions, they wanted an icon that showed which region the story came from. They wanted to see the headline and just a short descriptive piece of text about the story. So content query web part would generally be the tool of choice for roll-up for a lot of people. Personally, I'm not a complete fan of content query. I think it has its place. For this kind of large-scale roll-up, I would rather use something like search. But content query does have its place. It's quick and easy to configure. It's fairly simple to customize with Xslt. I will say fairly simple. Obviously, you need someone who knows what they're doing with Xslt. And it's good for time-critical information. So if you have a client that says, when this is added to SharePoint, it must appear in the roll-up immediately, content query will do that for you. It doesn't work across site collections. Yes, you can code around that. You can make multiple queries to the site collections, but that hits our custom code restriction. It doesn't provide paging out of the box. Again, you can add this, but you have to extend the code. And this one's fairly unknown. The CQWP is limited to 1,000 lists. Now, what this means is it will go out and look for your data across 1,000 lists, and as soon as it hits list 1001, boom. It doesn't return any data at all, and you just get a blank web part. The kicker for this one is if you're searching for a particular content type, it will look at all the subsites that have that content type, and then it will look at all of the lists in that subsite. So if you can still restrict this down to just say lists of a document type, but as soon as it reaches say 5 document libraries, it's going to search all those 5, go to the next site, it will search those 5. That 1,000 list limit can be reached fairly quickly. And the last thing is the content query web part increases the load on your web servers. You know, this code is happening at that front end. So if you do have a very time-critical intranet, you want to be able to deliver information quickly, then the content query web part is going to increase some of that load. So we have a hero, my hero, search. So the search application as a whole has been scaled from the ground up. So it will grow to meet your enterprise requirements. Search results can be provided from multiple site collections. Again, they can be styled easily using Xslt. And we can do very complex search queries. But every hero has his kryptonite. So your result data is only as fresh as your crawls. So obviously, if we're doing incremental crawls every 2 hours, the most fresh result you're going to get can be 2 hours old. The other restriction we had, and this only applies to 2010, is the me and the today tokens that you can use in the content query web part. They're not available to you in the search web part unless you extend. Now, I have a lot of clients where we have had to extend the search web part to include that functionality. On the subject of the crawls, we will talk briefly about the constant crawler. Matthew McDermott did a session yesterday, I believe, that's worth catching up on, and he will actually go into detail about how the crawler works. So on top of the content query web part, search needs more preparation. So in addition to our content types and our site columns, we also need to talk about scopes, the managed properties, the crawling. We have to look at how recent do we need to do our crawls. So we're going to go to our first part now where we're going to talk about how we built this in 2010. So what I'm going to do is we're going to step through each of the items that actually form the building blocks of our solution. So we're going to start with our site columns, the content types, the page layouts, and really this is about improving the editor's experience. Then we're going to look at the managed properties and the scopes and how we really take those results and use that to form then the results area, which is our core results web part, and then the Xslt to style that. So for our particular solution, we needed 4 site columns. So we wanted region, sector, and primary sector. Now, this part of the solution, we're only dealing with region, and that's really to control our icon. And the article summary is our short summary text that we're displaying. Sector and primary sector were used for other parts of the website where they wanted to roll up news specific to a financial or pharmaceuticals, that sort of area. But the same techniques apply. So we had a content type, and this just inherited from the standard out-of-the-box article page. We called it the Legal Corp news article page, nice and catchy. And we added on 4 site columns to this. So with our content type made, we now had to think about deployment. So how do we want to deploy this? So you've got several options. There's obviously manual configuration. You can go to each site collection in turn, build your content type. Those spelling mistakes, those site columns are going to get created with the wrong names. It's going to completely play havoc with all of your styling that you're going to try and move between these site collections. So you can use the content type hub, which is a good solution. It's not without its problems. I do have a client that uses the content type hub heavily, and I think there are times when they wish they hadn't. The other option there is as well PowerShell. So we can push out our content types using PowerShell. We can build them from script. It's repeatable across all our environments. And the last one, of course, is a Visual Studio solution package. You can build your site columns, build your content types, package them up as a WSP. In this case, the client obviously was trying to avoid custom code and farm solutions, so we actually went with PowerShell to push this across the site collections. And I would say that was the client choice, really, to move away from the content type hub. So our page layout was copied from article page, and we put our new site columns into it to basically improve the edit experience for the editors. Now, I'm not going to show hardly any code today, but basically within your page layout, we can inject controls that affect how the page appears to the editors. So in here we're dropping in a drop-down choice field for primary sector. That basically means they can just drop down, pick it from a list, nice and easy. And that basically would look like this to the editors. So we have our sector, primary sector, region. And I have got the article summary on this one. So the region one there is actually preset for most of the page libraries that we set up. And then that was actually hidden from them. So to make this work, before we go any further, you have to create some content. You have to tag it. And you have to make sure each of those fields has had a tag put in it. And then we do a full crawl. If you don't do this, the next section will not work. We can't set up our managed properties, and we can't then take those managed properties into search. So before you do any of this, tag it, full crawl. Once you've done that full crawl, our properties become available, and you'll find them under crawl properties with a wonderful OWS underscore. And if you put spaces in your field names, you're going to see those. Where possible, try and create your site columns with concatenated names, and then change them afterwards, space them out. This can then be remapped to a more readable managed property. And then that managed property is what we can then take forward into our results pages and use those. The last configuration option we had here was a scope. So you don't necessarily have to use scopes. It's going to depend on how big your farm is, how much you're crawling. I've had to use a scope in my demos because I've got several web applications set up. They're all being crawled by the same search application. So to make sure I only show you one set of results, we're using a scope. From a migration point of view, your scopes will migrate into 2013, but you will not be able to edit them afterwards. So bear that in mind. So in the core results web part, the scope is just typed in. So a worrying experience there is obviously typing your scopes wrong. I'd prefer there was a picker, but we can't always have what we want. So the final section really is the core results web part. We drop that onto the page, and out of the box, that will give us the wonderfully styled search result. But what we actually want to get to is this. So we're going to use our Xslt to control that rendering and to make it look how the client wants, give us our nice article, our nice icon to show us where in the regions it came from. And that Xslt is going to look like this. Can everyone at the back see? No? Okay, the slides will be there anyway afterwards. So basically what we're doing here is for the image, we've got a very big if block, and it's just saying, right, if this is Americas, show the American icon. If this is EMEA, show the European icon. And if it's Asia Pac, show the Asian icon. And if it's none of them, we'll do global. Actually, I did look specifically for global, so yeah. So we've also got some deployment options with the Xslt. The first one is we can put it straight into the search core results properties, which is a wonderful editing experience if anyone's done that. We can put them into the site collection style library, and we can reference them directly. We can deploy them to the file system in underscore layouts, or we can put them in a federated location in the service app. The migration story around the federated service app, federated location isn't very nice for the Xslt. It's supposed to work. I haven't been able to get it to work. And then once you do have your Xslt in the location, you can't actually edit it. So when we move later down the migration path and we're trying to tidy up and change things, we can't actually change our Xslt. So if we're putting them directly in the search core results web part, we've got this wonderful XSL editor. Now, if you were in Matthew McDermott's session earlier, he questioned why this was called an editor when it's actually a text box. There's no editing experience as such. So really you want to cut and paste all of that into a decent editor that will give you XML styling and check everything for you. There is nothing more frustrating than going to your search results and then you find you've actually just got the standard out-of-the-box results and think, where's my pretty pictures? There's probably a spelling mistake in the XML or a tag that's not closed. So there's kind of silly things that will take you hours to find unless you do something like put it into a decent XML editor, something that will understand syntax and pick up where you've perhaps made a mistake. So site collection style library or on the file system, our other option. The file system option would obviously be better deployed as a solution package. Again, in this particular instance, the client didn't want to use solution packages, so we did a scripted deployment using PowerShell to push those files out. And they're linked to, from the web results page, using, in this case, style library. So in my demo, it's on the style library. And then the final one is the federated location. So you get to this through the search service application under federated locations, and you basically can create a new federated location that takes from the SharePoint search results, but then you can apply your own styling and your own properties. We'll talk about the properties in a second. This is the only option to actually deploy the Xslt and the fetched properties together. The fetched properties will come to after this one. So this is just where we pick the actual location properties. Federated location might be a better heading there, but basically when you pick that, that then picks the Xslt, the fetched properties, the particular search engine you're pulling from, and outputs the results there. So the last thing we need to do is we need to tell the search web part which properties it needs to pull back. So if you don't do this and your Xslt references those properties, you're going to get some interesting errors, or with search none at all, and it will just display using the old XSL. So it creates a cached copy of the XSL and it ends up using the old one, which can be very confusing when you're troubleshooting. So again, as with the XSL editor, this is actually an even worse editing experience. That is the only field you get. You don't get a text editor you can open up. You just get this tiny little field. And you need to get all of that into it. So again, copy it out, take it into an XML editor, get it sorted out so that you can see what you're adding in. So you can see our 4 columns at the bottom here. When you've done that, you then need to take all of the line breaks out and return it to a single column to paste back into the editor. If you don't do that, it won't work. You'll just get a broken XML. So the final thing we need to do is we need to configure our query to tell the search results web part what we're searching for. You know, we're not using the search box here to drive our query. This is a fixed query. We know we want to go and get the content type, and we want to display it accordingly. So when you're building in 2010, there's some key points you need to think about. The first is obviously the impact to the search architecture. If you were doing this in content query web parts, your load is on the web part. Great. You can monitor your web front ends. You can monitor your web front ends, react accordingly, increase the memory if you need to. By moving to search, we're then starting to move that load from the web front ends to the back ends to the query servers. So again, consider the impact that if you've got 1,200 people hitting the front page, they're all going to be hitting these queries to the query servers. So you need to scale your search accordingly. Remember to create some content, tag it properly and crawl it before you can start working with those properties. And consider those deployment options around federated locations. If you're in a situation where you're thinking about 2013 in the very near future, I'd probably avoid using federated locations. And purely because the migration story isn't as good. So how many people are actually on 2010 now? Okay, how many on 2013? Okay, and how many are thinking of making that step in the next 6 months? Cool, so a few of you, excellent. Okay, so we're going to have a look now at what it looks like in the browser. Hopefully. So this is our intranet page. I'm going to apologise for the lorem ipsum dolor citer everywhere. It really is the quickest way of getting some fake content in there. I will point out that I had a prediction for April the 16th that it was going to be sunny in London. And a week ago when I was looking at my slides, I was thinking, oh, I've got that so wrong. What can I say? So it's all down to me, this good weather. Okay, so what we're going to look at, first of all, is our content types. And down here is our legal court news article page. Okay, so this is it's inheriting from article page. And we have our featured story, primary sector, region, sector, article summary. I didn't talk about featured story, that's for another web part that's on this page. So that's our fields there that we've added. And so we're just going to edit this page. So I have created the content, I've tagged it, I've created the managed properties. Because of the requirement of doing a full crawl, we don't really want to be sitting here waiting 5 minutes while I talk about nothing in particular while we wait for that crawl to finish. So the content's in there, it's been tagged, I've done the crawl, and I've created the managed properties. So we're going to add a web part. I'm going to do it in the middle here. Unfortunately, when I designed this demo, I was designing for a widescreen laptop. And of course, I've plugged into a projector that does 1024 by 768, so the scale doesn't quite work, but you will get the idea. So we add our search web part. And we sit and wait. There we go. So again, no query results because we haven't got a query. So we're going to edit that web part. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our location. Can everyone see that? Or I'll try. No, I haven't got Zoom it installed, so apologies if you can't see it. It'll be on the video. So we're going to set our scope first of all. Let's just move that across. So our scope is SP 2010 legal core. We're going to define our results to be sorted by modified date. We're going to set a maximum results of 4 because I want to see the top 4 stories. We're going to turn off location visualization, and what this means is we can now edit the fetched properties and the XSL if we choose. So I need to just grab a file off the file system. So this is our fetched properties as one single line. I just haven't got, I think, word wraps on. So when we paste, you can see there that that's a horrendous editing experience in there. But if we paste that in, we can see we've got our entire XML in this tiny little field. Don't even try and troubleshoot in that box. Cut it out, put it into an XML editor. Okay, because we're not using the user query that's in the search box, I'm going to change this to query 4 or query 5. This basically stops it picking up any of the results if someone types a search in or puts one in the URL. We're going to have a fixed query, a fixed keyword query, and I'm going to use content type, legal, corp, news, article, page. So I've got spaces in my content type name, so that's actually wrapped in speech marks. And because I'm using content that I've duplicated and used lorem ipsum dolor all over it, we're going to remove duplicate results. Now, if you're providing news article pages that might use very sort of similar looking templates or similar looking text, very similar stories, you may want to remove duplicate results to make sure that you're always getting those top 4. I'm not worried about that. So we're going to set our title, the latest news, title and border. So the last thing we need to do is tell it where to go to get its XSL. So as I said, I've deployed this to the style library. You could deploy to the underscore layouts if you're not using the federated locations. And we're going to paste that in there. Not that one. I couldn't guarantee that I wasn't going to type that wrong. So we have a nice edit box there. Why couldn't we have that on the fetch properties? That would make things a lot easier. We say OK to that. And we should, when I save this, there we go. So there's our Xslt being applied to our 4 search results. And there's our 4 stories coming from the news sites. So the top one's coming from our Asia Pac site. The top one's from our global site. The global acquisition there is from our America site. And the last one there is from our European site. So that's it in 2010. And just to show that that was the planned one. That's what it looked like when I took the screenshot on my laptop at the right resolution. So I talked very quickly about the featured properties. So we chose to have a featured story. And we gave the content editors the ability to say, this is a featured story. I want this to be on the front page. And that could be used at either the region level or, as in this case, on the very front page of the intranet. So again, it's just another example of how you can use the same search web part to do similar things. In 2013, this becomes even easier, and there's some nice things you can do with that. We'll talk about that shortly. So we're going to talk now about taking what we've just built and taking that into 2013 using a migration. So obviously, you're going to be looking at migrating your databases. There is no supported in-place upgrade. So generally, you have to do a content database attach upgrade. So this is how we've done the migration site on here. You can upgrade your search service application using the same method. Whether you should is probably going to be down to your business requirements, mainly relating to moving your properties, scopes, and things like that. Personally, I'm going to try and avoid upgrading search service. I'd rather build from scratch because you're going to get some of the benefits that 2013 brings to you. Obviously, once you've moved your scopes and your federated locations, you really can't do much with those once they're in. Scopes, definitely, you'll go to the scopes page and say, you can use them, but that's all you can do. You can't edit them. So they're going to rapidly become outdated. So the process, we're going to build our new SharePoint 2013 farm. In this case, we're going to migrate by restoring the search admin DB. We're going to create our search service application by attaching to that database. That's going to pull across all of our managed properties and the things we're interested in. We're going to create our new web application, restore our content databases. We're going to attach the content databases to those web applications, and then we're going to fix issues. Probably a lot. So just a quick touch on the mounting the SP content database. It will sit at 28.13 for as long as it needs, and it seems to be forever. So I only had a small amount of content in my database, so it didn't sit there for too long. But obviously, if you're dealing with some large content databases, you probably won't expect to see that move for a while. So I'm not going to demonstrate the migration process because it's a little bit painful on here. So I did screenshot, so hopefully these come out clearly. So this is after we've attached our content database. We've added our search service application. And so the key thing is we've got no current stories available. So everything's come across. The web parts are there. They're not erroring. They're just saying, well, I haven't got anything. So the first thing we need to do is do a crawl. Our search database here, although we've moved the managed properties over, we don't have an index. We don't have any data there. So we need to still do that crawl. So after our crawl, we've now got some stories. We haven't quite got our images. So certainly down this side. And there's a really good reason for that. And it's to do with the way that SharePoint 2013 handles managed properties now. So our site columns came across, but not our managed properties. But during our crawl, SharePoint now automatically creates these managed properties for us from our site columns. So this is really key. So this is why we chose site columns for these, is that when you're moving into 2013, those columns will automatically get created as managed properties. Now, you can just see down the bottom here, I don't know how well you can read it, we have region, OWS, CHCS. Nice and easy to read. And the same's happened to the crawled property. And what SharePoint's done is it's identified the field type and it's applied a suffix to basically denote what type of field. So this is a choice field. If there's a text box, you'll have OWS text, OWS bool, various others. The only one that's slightly different on this is the taxonomy fields. They have their own naming structure. I've got a link on this slide that you'll get in your pack that actually lists all the suffixes that are currently used. So we need to go in and edit our fetched properties. And we need to edit our XSL. And this is where the federated locations would fall down for us, because we can't go and edit that XSL. Obviously, if we're using Xslt in the style library, it's not a problem for us. We can go and edit that. We can fix this. So as part of your migration process, this would all go into your remediation document. So when you go to do your full live, all of these steps are here. In fact, you can pre-configure your web parts, you can save them down and just upload them in place. And this is what we're left with our nice, colourful, almost 2013 style. So we've moved our content into SharePoint 2013, but it's still 2010. It's still the 2010 experience there because we haven't actually moved it across. And obviously, SharePoint 2013 is nice and polite, and it gives us these wonderful messages, pre-flight checks. And we choose to upgrade our site collection. And it checks again, phrasing like, we think you'll love the new SharePoint. So yeah, I'm ready. We're going to move. So after a period of time, and it will basically sit and work, and after a period of time, you'll get an upgrade completed successfully, hopefully. And you'll be, excellent, I can see my new site. And you go to your homepage and, oh dear, it looks terrible. And basically because you've upgraded your site and it's gone, oh, you need the new SharePoint 2013 master page, which doesn't have your CSS in, any of that information. So of course we go and create our new custom master page with our CSS, and we're getting back to the look and feel that we had of our intranet. It's obviously picking up some of the SharePoint fonts, so some of our styles have changed. So as part of your remediation, is this a good time to look at refreshing your intranet, making it look nicer? So some key points about the migration there. Scopes and federated Xslt can't be edited after you've migrated. So if these are things that do change for you, then you probably want to think before migration, moving away from those and looking at using perhaps files on the file system or in style libraries. Managed property names will change unless you go and remap them. Again, that is obviously another option. You can remap your managed properties back to the names they should be. But I really would weigh up the benefits of building from scratch in 2013 because of those improved search options. And we're going to have a look at those now. So we're going to look at flexing the new muscles of SharePoint search. So the key one that we've already touched on, automatic managed properties. Obviously, the way that SharePoint has moved now, with you being able to edit things in the web, the site collection, and the search service application, you didn't want your content editors adding a new site collection and going, Mr. Admin, can we have a full crawl, please, because I need that property. So Microsoft have changed the way that these managed properties work, and they're created for you. We've also got our result sources. So these are kind of scopes on steroids. There's a lot of power in result sources, and we're going to take a look at those shortly. And then we've got our display templates. So who loves Xslt? I don't see a single hand, and I'm not surprised. So display templates, it's HTML, it's JavaScript. These things have been around since the internet came about. So it's old technology that's been refreshed. There's a lot of people out there that have those skills to use. And we've also got our new search web parts. So we've got the search results, the replacement for the search core results, which is available to you with a standard cal. And you've got the content by search, which is enterprise cal only. Not a lot of people realise that because of the way the licensing model has changed. And of course, we've got the continuous crawl. So in 2013, we've still got our site columns and content types. We've still got our page layouts, our managed properties. The change there is then result sources, display templates, image renditions, which we'll go into a bit more detail in a minute, and then our web parts. So just a couple of touches on here. The search results web part, if you want to remove duplicates, if you want to leave duplicates in, you actually have to export the search results web part, change something in the XML, and then re-upload it. There's no ability in the GUI to turn on and off duplicates. So you're just looking in the web part properties for trim duplicates and make that false. Server enterprise cals get the content by search. It's a nicer editing experience. Duplicate trimming appears to be off by default. Certainly when I've exported it and had a look at it, that's turned off. And there are some pre-configured variants for you. So there's images, there's a whole, we'll see them actually in the demo. So the first part of our build, site columns, content types, deployment, page layout, nothing's changed. These are all the same for us. Our managed properties, well, we don't need to go and do this now. So I don't need to go in and do my crawl and then go in and create these managed properties. We just need to crawl the content. But it must be tagged and crawled, again, before these will appear. If you add a site column and then you don't tag anything in it, the crawler doesn't know it's there. So again, we've seen that one before. So result sources, really this now, it takes what was available to you in the federated locations, what was available to you in scopes, it adds them together, and there's some extras. And these can be defined at the service app level, the site collection level, or even the subweb level. And we have the query builder to define the basis of these result sources. So this is the query builder for anyone who hasn't seen the query builder. So we're in, I can't remember which web part this one was from, but we have the ability, I think this is the basic one, the search results. So we have our keyword filters, property filters. We're going to have a look at this shortly. So from the result sources, we then need display templates. So we need a way of rendering this content to the screen. So no more Xslt. I know a few people that are going to be happy about that. HTML, JavaScript based, and if you've got publishing turned on, you have the design manager to create that raw JS file for you. You can create the JS files yourself. Use the design manager. You'll probably save yourself a world of pain. So the display templates, and now you guys at the back are definitely not going to see this. The one thing we're really interested in is this managed property mapping. So this is where we tell the web part what properties are available for it to display. And basically there we have the display name, the actual managed property name, and these are in a block at the top of every display template. So what I would do say is jump on your servers, have a look at these display templates. You can learn a lot actually from the out-of-the-box ones before you start playing with these. And these will be exposed in the managed property mappings here as well. So you can look at changing and pushing them in once they're in. Something I haven't actually covered off in my notes is the target control type here. If you're looking at using these display templates across content, web parts, and search results, you need to make sure you've got both of these boxes ticked, else they don't become available in the drop-down in the web part properties. So display templates, they have some tag rules. So if you want to use your JavaScript, you actually have to make sure that all of your JavaScript goes inside particular tags. Failing to do this means it won't get processed. And if you then want to take, so we're generating things like a variable containing region ID here. If you then want to use that region ID in your HTML, which you will, we then need to make sure that that goes within another set of tags. So what we're setting up here is just an href, and we're inserting that in the link URL of the item. So this is a JavaScript variable that's just been pulled in from that tag. When you create your HTML file, the display template, once you save it, SharePoint will go and create the JavaScript file for you automatically. These files are linked. You can't edit the JavaScript file if you've created it in this manner, and if you do, it'll break or get overwritten anyway every time you rewrite the HTML. Nice improvement about display templates is troubleshooting. Anyone who's tried to troubleshoot Xslt will know the world of pain that is, and despair and frustration. So the beauty is, I've got the IE Dev toolbar here. Obviously, you've got the Chrome toolbar and the Firebug and all the other options. The beauty here is when you load your home page, you can pick your JavaScript files as a particular file to edit. So rather than seeing an embedded JavaScript on your whole home page, you're just seeing that particular display template, which makes stepping through this JavaScript far, far simpler. So the next improvement that we're using is image renditions. So on a news website that I was working with, clients kept uploading very large-scale pictures, and then using CSS to scale these big 4 meg pictures down to 100 pixels. So SharePoint introduced the idea of image renditions to try and get away from this idea of people uploading large files and then not having the suitable images to display. So there's some requirements there. We must have publishing features turned on, and you must have blob caching enabled in your farm. Obviously, there is an impact to the farm by turning on blob caching. You need to consider the disk requirements and the impact that's going to have to your web front-end servers. But it does ensure appropriate file service sizes are delivered to the end client. So we'll have an image library that we can upload all our images to. And within that image library, you'll get the drop down, the little ellipsis, and you can look at the edit renditions. When you go to edit renditions, it will show you all the different renditions that are configured for your website. So we have one here for news article roll-up. So we defined that we wanted an image that was 260 by 170 pixels wide, and that would be the image that would be used for every story. And if you go in and edit that, you actually get the opportunity to choose which part of the image is going to be used, whether you want to scale the whole image down. And SharePoint will process all this in the background and create those renditions for you. So the editing experience for the editors is quite simple. They can choose which rendition to use when they're adding a picture, or they can choose the rendition by ID, if you know the ID number. So if you're looking at coding this directly into some HTML and not using the nice editors, then that's an ability. The neatest trick for me is the fact that if you just specify a height and a width, SharePoint will match the nearest rendition to it. So even if we're just using some script to pump in our images and calculating what the image name should be, as long as we include that height and width, it will pick the correct rendition. So if you're uploading a 4 meg image and you've got this nice rendition that's probably about 12K, that's a nicer experience for the end user when they're receiving that content. So the final part there is the web parts. So the server standard cows, we've got our search results. Not a lot's really changed. You've got some extra bits in there, but search results is not search core results anymore. So again, this now uses the query builder or another web part. Now, I highlighted this because some of the, certainly the catalog sites that I guess Microsoft are looking towards, you can have one web part doing the query and other web parts using that query to display their results. So we're talking here only one query going to the database. If you put 4 or 5 search results in 2010, they were all making their own individual queries. With this method, you can chain these together. One will get the entire result set, and then we can choose which ones are going to display what data. We can, in the query builder, we can choose our result source, so where the data is coming from. And we can see the preview query there, which is ideal. So you don't have to keep saving your page, updating it. So anyone who's worked with the search core results in 2010 knows what a pain it is to save, refresh, reload, re-edit. You can build your query a lot quicker now in the query builder. And then finally, we can choose which display template that we're going to use. So down the bottom, I'm using a single template. There is the idea of using result types. For this particular demo, I'm looking at just specifically outputting a type. So I don't want to let SharePoint decide what to use. I want to tell it which output. So in this case, I'm using a single template to display all of the results. If you've got the enterprise account, you have got access to the content by search. So actually, I'm using content search there. There is another one there called search-driven content. And in that is the video web part, the images web part, and these are predefined search web parts that you can use. But we're going to be using content search, which is basically the search core results with some nicer interfaces. We have some more options for styling in the content search. So there's ways of doing grouping. So I think there's an image rotator out of the box for that. Is it image tabs, isn't it?
Yeah.
And these are heavily used in the catalog sites, so where Microsoft are looking to do the, I've forgotten the name of the site. Yeah, catalog sites, that works. And finally, both of the results web parts can be used with query priorities. So obviously, if this is on your front page and it's really key that this information's there, then when your search system is being heavily loaded, you can make this a high priority. Again, the background behind this was covered more in Matthew McDermott's session yesterday, so definitely worth picking that up on the video. So building in 2013, there's some key points. Familiarise yourself with what's available to you in 2013. Have a play with it. Get the demos from Microsoft. Really have a think about what capabilities you now have in search before you decide which route to take, especially if you're looking now at perhaps building in 2013 from scratch. Then this is a really good opportunity to take advantage of some power there that Microsoft have given us. Think beyond the singular. So this is back to the web parts. A good example would be perhaps a video search web part, where we have one web part that displays the large video that you can play, and then the sub web part that shows, oh, these are similar. And that can all come off the same query. So we'll look at putting that together now in 2013. So again, very similar site. It's just been slightly stylized for 2013. We've got our guest editor still here, and the weather's still nice. It's held. One of the things I didn't show you actually was the editing experience for the users. So we'll just create a quick test page. Oh look, I've used that one. Okay, it didn't take it. There we go. Again, ever polite, this shouldn't take long. Is anyone getting annoyed by SharePoint 2013's over politeness? Yeah. Okay, so.
It's because it's live. It says it's working on it. I know it's not.
So, right, unfortunately, I can't get this into the middle of the screen, but you can see here the editors have their drop-downs to pick the sector. They've got a tick box because we had a multi-choice, and they've got a field there for their article summary. I'll just cheat. Leave the page. Okay, so nothing's changed in respect of the content types of site columns. They're all still there, so I'm not going to take you through those again. But what we'll do is we'll go and edit our page. And we'll do this one first with the search results. So under search here, we have our search results. So this is the standard cal version. So we'll edit our web part. There we go. So this query results web part, if you had multiple web parts on the page, this is where you could say, right, don't run your own query, go and get your results from this web part. But we're interested in our query. So this is our query builder. This one's opening straight into advanced mode. And I've already got a result set there. There we go. A result source called latest news result. So actually, let's have a quick look at that. So here's our result sources, and here's our latest news result. So I've only set this up in this site collection. So you can see here it says provided by the site collection. If this was defined at your service application level, it would be above there, provided by service application, I think. So we have our, oh, excellent, I don't have permissions. So we're choosing local SharePoint, and we're going to just pick up a SharePoint search results. And I've actually defined in here, again, using the query builder, I've defined in here our content type and the path. So the path is where we would define previously the URL that was being crawled. We get a lot more power now. Let's go back and edit that page again. Okay, so we have our local news results. If I hit test query there, we should get our 4 results straight away. Now, you'll notice here you also have this search box query. Again, I'm just going to remove that. We're only interested in what's coming from the result source, so we don't actually need to do a query. We don't need to add anything. We're just saying, well, whatever comes as naturally from the query, we'll have. Say OK to that. We then get to choose our display template. So again, I said we're looking at a single template. and I'm interested in the latest news. No, that one. And just so you can see that one, I have SharePoint Designer, SharePoint Node Designer. And they still haven't fixed this bug where when you click on all files, nothing actually happens unless you click off and back on again. So in my, where's it gone? Sorry, I want master pages, don't I? So in the master pages gallery, we now have our display templates. And you've got several here. So you have search and content web parts. So if we're using the content by search, they're generally in there. And then if we're just using normal search web parts, they're in here. And this is because I came through master pages. That's why I go through catalogs. So if you go through master pages, it's expecting to see master pages, not JavaScript. So you have to go all files, master page, click once, and then display templates, search, and somewhere down here, is my web part. No, I'm in the wrong one. It must be in content web parts. Okay, it's hiding. Never mind, they're in there. Trust me, it will work. So we've got our display template picked. Trust me, I'm a consultant. That works every time. So you can see that it's picked up now, some of the properties coming through. So our, I'm not seeing anything. Okay, no, it hasn't picked up those properties yet because I haven't saved it. So we only want 4 results. We're going to turn off promoted results. We're going to turn off did you mean, turn off post. If you don't do show ranked results, you don't actually see anything in the web part. So I guess that's if you're using just for promoted or their ones. We're going to turn off our advanced link. We actually don't want to see anything but the results. And we can give it a title. Oh, so let's just check that in. I must admit, I do like the improvement here about telling you that you've just saved your page and it's not been checked in yet, no one can see it, and then you can publish. The actual editing experience of the content management is much nicer. So here's our stories. Now, we've only got 3, but I asked for 4, and there are 4 pages, and this is the problem with the display duplicates. So this particular web part was straight out of the web part gallery. It has display duplicates turned to false. So obviously we want to, in this case, show all of our stories. But we have metros, look, live tiles, aren't they great? Everyone loves live tiles now, don't they? So we're about out of time. The next part of this demo is really to build this using the enterprise web part. I've got to be honest, it really isn't much different at all. There's a couple of settings that are different, but I'm probably not going to bother there. There'll be a blog post coming up soon showing all of these. So if we just go back to our slides. So this is what it should have looked like on a wide screen rather than all bundled up. And just a couple of related sessions. So unfortunately, we're obviously with the tail end of day 2, so we've missed most of them. Neil has one tomorrow on upgrading, deploying, and scaling out SharePoint Search. And if you're interested in things like the display templates, I would recommend Dev 209. Matthew goes into some quite detail about that. And IT 102 Search, Neil Hodgkinson, went quite deep into the crawling and some of the improvements around the continuous crawl. On that subject, don't be taken in by the name continuous crawl. It is not continuous. It is every 15 minutes unless you change it. So you still will have stale results unless you look at improving that. The beauty is the way that the continuous crawl works is you can run that every 1 or 2 minutes if you choose. There was a paper during the beta preview where Microsoft said they were running it every minute on terabytes of content without issue. So I haven't seen anything official since the release, but they do say it can be run regularly. So any questions at that point?